All right, so are you ready? Buckle up, because today we're diving into some, let's just say, unconventional career paths for Donald
Oh,
Trump.
this should be good.
We're looking at a crowdsourced list, and get this, it's called Top 10 Alternative Jobs for Donald Trump.
Top 10.
Yeah, but believe me, it goes way beyond just 10 suggestions.
Oh, I bet. So we're not talking about a typical job board here, are we? This is crowdsourced.
Huh?
So it's more about how people see him write,
Yeah,
like public perception,
yeah.
and maybe using humor to, make a statement, not really actual career advice, I guess.
You hit the nail on the head. It's like a massive brainstorming session, people throwing out all kinds of ideas. Some are serious, some are satirical, and some are just plain out there. But I think if we dig into these suggestions, we might uncover some pretty interesting insights into how people view Trump and the qualities they associate with different roles.
That's what I'm interested in, those underlying themes and patterns.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about, would Trump be a good fit for these jobs or not? It's about what those suggestions say about what we expect from leaders and how we process emotions through humor, complex emotions.
Like right off the bat, we have marriage counselor and therapist.
Oh, wow.
Come on, you gotta admit the irony's pretty rich.
Yeah, definitely plays on his personal history, doesn't it?
Mm.
Multiple marriages, very distinct communication style. But I think it goes deeper than that. Like when you think about it, this suggestion makes me think about the expectations we have for leaders to, walk the walk. Is it hypocritical to give advice you don't follow? Or is it just a human thing we all do? What do you think?
It's like holding up a mirror to those in power, right?
Yeah.
And asking, do you practice what you preach? And in this case, the answer seems to be a big fat no. But it's done with a wink and a nudge, through humor, which makes it a little easier to swallow than a direct attack.
You're right. It allows for a level of critique without being too aggressive. And I think we see that throughout this whole list.
Okay, so next we have underwear model, specifically for Fruit of the Loom. Now, I'm not really sure what to make of this one.
It's absurd, isn't it?
Mm.
But I think it speaks to our, well, maybe a discomfort with wealth and power. There's almost this desire to see powerful people brought down a notch or two to a more relatable level. Imagine it. Donald Trump in Fruit of the Loom underwear. It's funny because it's so unexpected.
Oh.
And it challenges the image he's built.
It's like taking someone who is seen as larger than life and putting them in a situation that's completely normal. Even a little embarrassing. It's poking fun at that carefully crafted image.
Maybe there's an element of wish fulfillment there, too, to seem humbled, brought down a peg.
All right, this next one's a doozy. Kindergarten teacher. I can't decide if it's hilarious or terrifying.
I'm leaning towards a bit of both. The source actually mentions a kid coming home from school complaining about their teacher, saying he's ugly and mean, and when the mom sees it's Trump, she just goes, "Oh, I see." That kind of sums up this suggestion perfectly, don't you think?
Totally. It plays on the idea of him being totally out of his element, trying to handle a classroom full of 5-year-olds. And let's be real, the potential for some not-so-appropriate lessons is pretty high. Like, imagine him teaching kids to build walls
Wow.
or to distrust anyone who looks different. It's darkly comedic. But it raises some serious questions about leadership and influence.
Yeah, even in a kindergarten classroom.
Yeah, right.
Leadership matters. The things leaders do and say, even if they're just pretending to be a teacher, can have a big impact.
Okay, now we're getting to some, how should I put this, unconventional suggestions. We have a bunch of jobs that are usually considered dirty or undesirable. Pit toilet cleaner, septic tank cleaner, sewer cleaner. It's almost like a theme.
It is interesting, isn't it, how these jobs that are the opposite of glamorous are being projected onto Trump. Makes you wonder if there's a desire to see him experience something unpleasant, something that challenges his privilege.
I see what you mean. It's how humor can be used to kind of flip the power dynamic. Do you ever find yourself laughing at stuff that's unsettling or uncomfortable?
Oh yeah, totally. I think it's a way we cope with those icky feelings. Laughter can be a huge release for societal anxieties. And sometimes it's the only way to talk about sensitive topics that would otherwise feel too confrontational.
So these next two suggestions kind of shift the tone. Landlords and judge, they tap into different aspects of power and responsibility. What do you think these roles say about what people associate with Trump?
Well, landlords could be a nod to his business background, but it also has those connotations of control, over other people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And judge, well, that makes you think about things like fairness and impartiality and wisdom. So are people seriously suggesting these roles for him? Or is it a little sarcastic? A comment on his perceived lack of those qualities. It's up for interpretation.
I'm struck by how open-ended these suggestions are. What does that tell us about how we project our own beliefs and hang-ups onto public figures?
It speaks to how complicated our relationship with leadership is. We want certain qualities from our leaders. We want them to have certain values, but we also know they're human, flawed. And humor is how we sometimes deal with that tension.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because we have this one suggestion that is both funny and thought-provoking: middle school bus driver.
Yeah. The source even says if he can handle this, he can handle any foreign diplomat.
Yeah.
They're acknowledging that managing a bus full of teenagers takes a special set of skills, patience, diplomacy, a bit of, cleverness. And you could argue that those skills are pretty relevant to political leadership, too.
So they're saying navigating the chaos of middle school is like the ultimate training for diplomacy. Deal with teenagers and international summits seem easy.
Exactly. It makes us ask, what qualities do we really need in our leaders? Are they the same as those needed to run a business or a reality TV show? This list, as silly as it is, makes us think about those questions. And it's not just the skills, right? It's also like the temperament. Can you stay calm under pressure? Can you make good decisions that affect a lot of people?
You know, it's funny when you think about it. A middle school bus driver and a world leader actually have quite a bit in common. They both deal with a diverse group of people with their own needs and wants and try to keep things running smoothly.
It really is a good analogy. And it shows how this list isn't just about poking fun at Trump. It's about making us think critically about leadership.
So moving on, we have a few suggestions that seem to be playing on Trump's, legal skills or lack thereof. We have lawyer, which, well, he did go to law school.
True, but I don't think people are suggesting this because of his actual legal expertise. It's more about his public image, his ability to talk his way out of anything, to spin a narrative, to maybe bend the truth a little.
So it's not really saying he'd be a good lawyer, but more a commentary on his style.
Yeah, exactly. It's about how he uses language, how he presents himself, and how that works on people, whether they agree with him or not. It's funny how some people might see this as a compliment to how clever he is, while others might see it as criticizing him for manipulating facts.
Hostage negotiator is an interesting one. It's very specific, almost like it's referring to something specific.
It probably refers to his involvement in those, high-pressure situations, international stuff, business deals. It plays on the idea of him as a deal maker, someone who can handle tough negotiations and come out on top.
But again, is it a real suggestion or more of a dig at how he negotiates? Because some might say his approach is more about bullying and less about actual diplomacy.
It's really up to how you interpret it, and that's what makes this list so interesting. It reflects our anxieties and frustrations all projected onto one person.
This whole thing reminds me of how satire can be used to twist reality to show deeper truths, like holding up a warped mirror to society and making us see things we might normally ignore.
That's a great way to put it. And it's why humor is so powerful for social commentary. It lets us talk about complicated issues without feeling overwhelmed or giving up.
Okay, let's lighten things up a little. We have a few suggestions that are just pure comedy gold. Medusa's eye doctor, for instance. Can you even imagine?
Oh, that one's great. Just the image is hilarious.
Right.
Trump trying to put contacts on Medusa without turning to stone.
Yeah.
It's the perfect example of how absurdity can make a point.
Right. And then there's rapper. The source even gives us some sample lyrics. I am Donald Trump and I want to build a wall. I want people off my wall and they should get a ball.
It's so funny because it's ridiculous, but it kind of captures some of his personality. The bragging,
Yeah.
the simple language, the way he repeats certain phrases. It's like a caricature, but one that shows something real about him.
And it plays on him always wanting attention, right? Like rapping would be another way for him to be in the spotlight.
Exactly. It feeds into this idea of him as a performer, someone who needs attention and publicity no matter what form it takes.
Speaking of performance, we can't forget clown. Some would say he's already got that one covered.
Oh, yeah, that's a little on the nose. But it does show how people see him. Someone who's not to be taken seriously, whose actions are often seen as silly or out of touch.
But let's not forget about the serious suggestions. We have motivational speaker, which might actually be a good fit in a strange way.
That is an interesting one. It plays on his, self-proclaimed business smarts and how he likes to give advice. Imagine him on stage sharing his secrets to success. It could be a seminar on going bankrupt over and over and still coming out on top.
Or a master class in branding, even if the product is, let's say, questionable.
It's so interesting how this one could be seen in different ways.
Yeah.
Is it saying his business skills are legit? Or is it making fun of his ethics? It all depends on how you look at it.
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not just listing jobs for Trump. It's about using those suggestions to talk about leadership and power and the role of humor in our society.
It's about making us think about what we want from our leaders. And do their actions match the image they present?
And sometimes the best way to do that is through laughter.
Exactly. Humor can disarm. It can be a way to talk about tough topics without getting bogged down. It lets us process complicated emotions, connect with others, and find a little relief in the midst of absurdity.
So if you had to add a job to this list, what would it be? What role do you think would either be perfect for Trump or so hilariously wrong that it just has to be on there?
That's a tough one. There's so many possibilities. But I think I'd go with game show host. It plays on how much he loves attention, how he always creates a spectacle, and how he can make even boring things seem dramatic.
I love it. I can picture it now. Him on stage with flashing lights and a booming voice saying, "You're fired!" to some contestant who didn't build a wall high enough.
That's it. It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
entertaining. And it speaks to a side of him that people would definitely recognize.
This deep dive has been quite the journey. From the silly to the insightful, this crowdsourced list really shows us how people see Donald Trump and the qualities we link to different jobs. It's like holding up a funhouse mirror to politics, twisting the image, but showing some hidden truths along the way.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing how something that starts as a joke can make you think so much. It shows how powerful humor can be when it comes to talking about tough stuff and getting a conversation going.
For sure. It's a reminder that even when things are serious or frustrating, humor can help us cope, and it's a way to connect with people.
And sometimes that laughter can lead to some pretty insightful observations. Well, we've talked about everything from marriage counselor to sewer cleaner and even through a game show host. But now I'm really curious, if you could pick one job from this whole list that you think would either be absolutely perfect for Trump or so hilariously wrong that it just has to be included, which one would you go with and why? Oh man, that's a tough one. They're all so interesting in their own way. But I think if I had to choose, I'd probably go with motivational speaker. It just feels right, with his personality and how he loves giving advice, even when no one asks for it.
I can totally picture it. Him up on stage, pacing back and forth, telling everyone his secrets to success. It'd be this wild mix of bragging self-promotion and, who knows, maybe some questionable advice.
Exactly. And it would be up to the audience to decide if they're taking him seriously or just enjoying the show.
Well, this deep dive has been quite the adventure. From the totally absurd to the surprisingly insightful, Bill Krau's list has given us a peek into how people see Donald Trump and all the different qualities we connect with different jobs. It's like using a funhouse mirror to look at politics. Everything's distorted, but it also reveals some hidden truths.
It reminds us that being a leader isn't just about having a fancy title or a lot of power. It's about who you are, what you stand for, and how you treat the people around you.
And sometimes the most unexpected ideas can lead to the most interesting conversations. So if you were creating this list, what job would you add? What role do you think would either be perfect for Trump or so out there that it has to be on there? Let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.